Good day, welcome back to the channel. As promised, I'm going to try and do some more regular videos. So this one is going to be an inbox review of Airfix's 1/72nd scale BAC TSR2, which is going to be my next build, and it's also going to be my 2018 one-year build for my local model club, IPMS London. So you'll be able to follow the build for this, just like last year's Spitfire build, on ipmslondon.ca, and you'll be able to follow along in the forum there. Anyway, on to the kit. This is the 1/72nd scale version. I've also got the 1/48th. This is, for those who know it, it's very similar history, the TSR2 to the Avro Arrow. Many people thought this was a attack and bombing aircraft that was made in the early 60s, and people said it was ahead of its time, and due to some governmental and political stuff, the project was canceled and most of the aircraft were scrapped. There are two examples, both in museums in England, none of which are flying, unfortunately. So yeah, so this is the kit. I'm going to go through the inbox and we'll have a look. So as you can see, some very nice box art as always from Airfix, with the TSR2 on one of its test flights, along with a BAC Lightning, also considered ahead of its time back in that era. So I'm going to open it up. It's a fairly large box, as you can tell. So I've already opened it. So we'll just quickly go through some of what's in the box, and then I'll describe what I'm going to be doing with it. So here is the decal sheet. As you can see, quite well done, with all the various models, types that were made before being scrapped. As I said, several of them did fly. Some fairly good graphics there for the decals. Not too bad at all, nothing to complain about. I'll put that away. The instruction manual itself, pretty concise as always. Umbro color callouts, of course, but no big surprises. A brief history of the type of aircraft, the assembly. Not a huge part count, but still enough to be. You have to watch for a few things like nozzles, and I'm going to keep an eye for fit. The cockpit itself is not a lot of detail there, and I will be looking at some aftermarket just to pretty it up a little bit because it is fairly exposed. I haven't decided if I'm going to put the canopies open or closed yet, but we'll see. And again, going through tri-page fold out, so you can decide what to do there. Quite a few options for flaps, open and closed, etc. Landing gear. Some choices of ordnance if you want. And then on the back, let's open this up here, we have the two types that are modeled, or sorry, the one type that's modeled, I should say, with different scheme. This is 219 or 220, which was at the RAF Museum at Cosford, and there is part of the third one, XR222, which is at Duxford. But again, fairly straightforward markings. Really, the only difference is the identification of the serial number. A good supply of stencils in that, as indicative of the period. There we go. And of course, as I said, the usual Umbro color callouts. Okay, going through things here. I'll start with the canopies, just because I already opened it up. Fairly good shape for an older kit. I got this one at last year's, or 2 years ago, IPMS show in London, and it was a bit bashed around, but it wasn't bad. So again, canopies aren't too bad. Options for open and close. It is a two-seater aircraft, so you have a front and rear. So not too bad. Moving on, as you can see, as I said, fairly long in 1/72nd scale, so you can imagine how long it is in 48th as well. Fairly good panel lines. Let's get the light so we can hopefully see it a little bit better. Bring that into focus. Very tough to see, I know, with the white, I'm sorry. but fairly slightly recessed panel lines, actually fairly crisp. Nothing wrong with it. Yep. We'll see how well they fit. No ejector pin marks where they shouldn't be, etc. Not too bad at all. So that's the fuselage sides. Moving on. This is the sprue mostly contains the cockpit assemblies, some landing gear, etc. It should be pointed out, yeah, the pilots are pretty crude for 1/72nd scale. There they are. So yeah, not bad, but I'm not going to be building it with the pilots. Oops, let's try and get that a little bit better. There you go. So again, landing gear. The instrument panel isn't bad. There's one of the panels right there. There is decals, as I said, but I'm going to be doing some aftermarket stuff with it, so not too worried about that. There we go. Moving on, engines, weaponry, etc., including the back end, the exhaust. Again, nice crisp moldings. Not too bad at all for Airfix. Again, this is an older, slightly older mold, but again, it was a very popular kit and it's very tough to find. They do have a reissue now based on an anime series, and it's essentially the anime series essentially used the TSR2. So Airfix did that. They added a great bloody missile underneath. And you can actually still make it up to a regular TSR2. So they were a little bit easier to find. And full confession, I didn't realize that because I could have bought this years ago. So I waited for this one. And then after that, I heard about that. So not a big deal. But it's other than, like I said, the extra markings and the extra anime type missile. It's essentially the identical kit. So there. Okay, moving on to some of the larger sprues, upper and lower fuselage parts. The cockpit tub is right there. I'll do it like that. Again, fairly good detail there. Nothing to write home about, but more than adequate. Nice recessed panel lines. I'll turn it over so you can see the gear door assembly right there. There we go. Nice, actually fairly good detail there. A few little areas that might need a bit of cleanup, but not bad. Landing gear looks very nice and detailed. The landing gear on this is actually very unusual looking, so it'll be a bit of a challenge to make sure everything's lined up, etc. Tires and whatnot. So all in all, very nice. And then the wing piece assembly. So again, fairly straightforward one-piece wing, upper and lower. See if I can get these recessed panel lines. I don't think I'm going to, but again, very fine detail there. It looks actually very nice. I think this will come up nicely with a bit of a wash. You know, I'm not going to be able to see how close I can get it. No, you kind of get the idea though. I wish it was a slightly different color. The lower one, again, very nice. And the stabilizer, vertical stabilizer right there. And two horizontal ones, two of them one piece. So again, very nice assembly. There we go. Maybe get a little bit. See if I can get it for you. There we go. A little bit. You get the idea. There you go. It's really tough with this camera. White on white. So that's fairly nice. And so yeah, that's the kit. It all came a bit nicely bagged. So yeah, very nice looking. As I said, the box needed a little bit of help. I'm not too concerned about that. But yeah, it's going to make a nice build. The nice thing about this one, just like ship models, it's very large, but at least it's not wide. So it's going to go together well. Now the other thing I'm going to be doing is with this one, I'm going to add some aftermarket. and I'm going to be doing a what if. So as I said, this was canceled by the Labour government in England in the early 60s, but there's a lot of people that have said what if. So I am adding some aftermarket. So the first one is the zoom set from Eduard, or the TSR2. Those of you who know, they make different kinds of sets. The zoom set's more just has the basic stuff which I'm looking for. So things like the cockpit panel, stuff like that, the obvious stuff. Let's see if I can get this in focus here. There we go. Anyway, yeah, it's tough to get in focus. You get the idea. There we go. So the front and rear cockpits, harnesses, stuff like that, some very basic stuff. They do make some full-on other aftermarket sets, which can allow you to detail the bomb bays and stuff like that. If you want to do that, that's great. But as I've said before, I'm just looking to make the front office, shall we say, a little bit prettier. And this will nicely fit the build without adding too much. Some harnesses there as well, remove before flight flags, etc. So that's the set from Eduard. And then also from Eduard, the masking set, more and more. This is for the cockpit, obviously the canopy. For the price, if I can get it at the same time, it saves a ton of time. You're not going to see much, obviously, because it's a mask, but yeah, so that's the mask set as well, which makes masking the canopies here a little bit easier. So yeah, the what if. So what I've done is I've bought a set from Model Alliance, some Tornado Squadron markings, including, there's quite actually 5 in here, including some that served in the Iraq War #1, and several other ones. So the idea is, my what if scenario is, if this continued on into service, it would be in one of these squadrons, possibly in one of these schemes. So they give you 8 different schemes, and I haven't really decided yet. The Desert Pink kind of fascinates me, but there's a few other ones as well. So I haven't really decided what I'd do, because I figured if this went into service, it probably would have been retired, probably as an attack aircraft in the mid-80s. Late 80s, and reconnaissance maybe by the early 90s. Definitely the technology would have overtaken it by then. So yeah, that's I haven't quite decided. This one is a maybe, and there was another one here. I'm just trying to see if I can see it quickly here. Maybe one of the camouflage ones. Again, I haven't really decided yet. Possibly this one here. So again, something that would have served in theater. So we'll see. But this one, I have to kind of admit, I like the scheme for. Now, there is a company that makes true aftermarket what-if decals as for the Tornado. I have actually the set for the 148th ones, including if it served with the Canadian Armed Forces, NASA, the Luftwaffe, etc. But I couldn't get the set for 172nd. So this is why I came up with this. So this will be a little bit of a what-if. But again, it's perfect because it didn't exist. So none of the rivet counters out there can say this is wrong or this is whatever. So yeah, that's what's going to be happening. I'll be working on. Pleased to get back into some modern aircraft in this scale, 172nd. As I said, I've got the bigger one on the bench. Looking forward to building that. So yeah, that's what's going to be happening there, and I will keep people in the loop. We'll do some videos, stuff on the blog at blackfire.ca. Don't forget to like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. And you'll also see a build thread on IPMS London, as well as International Scale Modeler. I'll do a build in there. So that's it for this week. Again, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your comments and support. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, and be well.